Welcome to Meet a Revolutionary. Today, we're looking forward to speaking with Elijah.
Elijah is an advocate for climate action everywhere from his university's campus to the 2018 United Nations Climate Conference and on the Prime Minister's Youth Council.
Let's meet Elijah.
Hey,
Hi, Elijah. How
how's it
are
going?
you?
Oh, it's great. Happy to be here.
Awesome.
So happy to have you.
Yeah, really looking forward to this conversation and really just want to take it all back to where it began. What first inspired you to get involved in environmentalism and sustainability?
Absolutely. In high school, I was really lucky to take part in a number of just environmental initiatives, whether it was research trips to the Arctic and the subarctic or just research projects at my local university, as well as just different initiatives at school in terms of composting and recycling and those kind of like hands-on activities. And so that definitely sparked the interest, not just in the environment, but in climate change itself, which I've taken a little bit further.
Wow, that's awesome. And how have you channeled this inspiration into action?
For sure. So I think the first thing that I looked at was just looking to get an understanding of the issue of climate change from all the different systems that affect it, right? So the first one would be like the business sector, the corporate sector. Another one is like the science behind it itself and like the environmental science. Another one is kind of policy, so the role that government plays and things like that. So over the past, I guess, several years, I've kind of explored each of those things. I've worked on the Prime Minister's Youth Council, kind of providing advice to policymakers on environmental issues and looking to understand how they make that policy themselves. I've worked in the private sector in finance and consulting, sort of looking at how businesses can be more sustainable and do that because they are a big part of our world and our economic system. As well as kind of like the science and the engineering aspect of how can we design solutions that sort of fit symbiotically with the environment. So exploring all of those, seeing where the best solutions lie, and then helping others kind of try and find the same things.
So you mentioned your work with the Prime Minister's Youth Council. You also previously attended COP24. Can you tell us a bit about how you found your voice with decision and policymakers?
Absolutely. Well, I can tell you that first meeting on the Prime Minister's Youth Council, you sit down and you're faced with the Prime Minister himself, other senior government officials. And before then, you'd only seen them on TV, right? So you don't necessarily see them as people. You see them the same way you see actors and stuff like that. So it's easy to get starstruck, easier to get starstruck if you're not a fan of them. In this case, pretty ambivalent. But basically, in that moment, seeing them, you realize that they're people. You realize that talking to them, they have the same, I guess, like, ways of knowing, they have the same impulses, they have the same sort of reactions that you would in a conversation. And that really helped sort of break down those barriers where you could sort of feel vulnerable to share sort of what you thought, how you felt, and really just get the gratification of knowing that the concerns that you and your peers, in my case, other youth around me, had about the environment and things like that. I was able to sort of share that with the people that made decisions that affected it pretty substantially.
So you spoke about consulting businesses on their sustainability practices. Yeah. How can individuals implement sustainability in their daily practices?
I think sustainability is different every single day. The most fundamental thing is learning to understand it, right? So when you understand like how the environment works, how those systems work, the ideas of reciprocity, the ideas of sort of just living in line with your needs, not going above them, not going below them. You can bring that to any aspect of your life. You can bring that to work. You can bring that to your personal life. You can bring that to activism and to sort of advocating for change to be more in line with that in the systems as a whole. And that, I think, is really what that means for individual people.
I think it's so incredible. And as an individual, you've been doing this work for so many years. Yeah. What advice would you have to other young people who want to get involved and are looking for ways to start? For
sure. Yeah. When it comes to, I guess, just even speaking about individuals, I think individualism is one of the like tricky things when it comes to sustainability, because really at its core, sustainability is about interconnectedness. It's about community. It's about all those sorts of things. So like, at its most fundamental aspect, I think going to other people and saying, how can I help, right? If you don't have an environmental cause, or if you don't have any cause really that matters to you, going to those around you and asking them how you can help, I think is the most important thing you can do, because if you don't have a problem, you shouldn't be the one leading the solution to it. You know what I mean? You should be going to those who have it and supporting them in doing that and using your resources, power, privilege, whatever it might be. So I think that'd be a good first step.
So you mentioned you went to the Arctic when you were in high school. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you were doing over there?
Yeah, actually, probably one of the wildest experiences I've had so far.
Okay.
We flew from Winnipeg, my hometown where I went to high school, all the way sort of around the western provinces up to Yellowknife. Then we flew from Yellowknife to a community called Kugluktuk, which is like the westernmost hamlet in Nunavut. Flew a helicopter from there onto an icebreaker, rode the icebreaker around to Mitimata on Baffin Island, and then flew from there down to Iqaluit, Ottawa, back home. So this big kind of circuitous trip around Canada, a big part of it spent on board this icebreaker in the Arctic, and really supporting the scientists who conducted research on board practically year-round with their work. So it really got a lot of exposure to sort of different scientific projects, whether it was drilling ice cores and measuring the CO2 in them, or whether it was pulling plankton up from, I guess, down in the ocean itself. And the two things that I took away from it was, the first is just how interconnected everything is. So when you dam rivers in northern Manitoba, that releases mercury. And that mercury flows out to sea, gets into the fish that's there, and then gets into the diets of the animals that live there, the people that live there and eat that. So things thousands of miles away can have an impact downstream. And that's what I really mean by the interconnectedness of sustainability and why that really matters to understand it. The other thing that I learned up there was that idea of like those whose problems need to be solved should be the ones leading those solutions. When we spent a lot of time up there, when we were in the communities themselves, we lived with just members of the community, students. We slept in their high schools and things like that. And really getting their firsthand perspective on these issues was fantastic, because you're hearing sort of one thing from the scientists, they have their hypotheses and their conclusions, but those living on the land really understood those problems the best because they interacted with it every single day. And so you realize that importance of communication, cross-cultural communication, and sort of pairing not just like super technical science, but pairing it with sort of that human aspect as well.
Wow. That is incredible.
Such a powerful trip.
Yeah.
Fantastic, yeah.
That is amazing. And at Révolutionnaire, we always speak about the power of community and no one ever taking on a challenge alone. So I'd love for you to share how others can support your mission.
Absolutely. So right now I'm working with an organization called Student Energy that's piloting a new sort of project development and entrepreneurship program for youth. So if you have an energy or clean energy related business idea, or if you want to develop a project in your community because you see a need there, this will provide you with the training, the funding, the resources to be able to go out and do that yourself. It's fantastic for learning sort of the skills that you might need for a job in that sector, for anything sort of related to that, whether it's growing a business or whatnot. So I think if anyone's interested in that line of work, coming to Student Energy and getting involved in these programs right now would be great. And we have applications out right now as well for people who are.
Well, thank you so much, Elijah, for a wonderful and informative conversation. We really appreciate you being here today.
Thank you guys so much for having me.
To learn more about Elijah and support his work, please visit revolutionnaire.me/Elijah.
And be sure to stay tuned for more episodes of Meet a Revolutionary.